Welcome to the Rural Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Larson. This week we're in Kilbourne, Ohio with Josh Scheutzow of the Kilbourne Project. The Kilbourne Project is the story of 4 Ohio families who are helping preserve the historic town of Kilbourne for future generations. These families are risking it all on this passion project as they seek to restore 11 historic buildings and bring 40 new jobs to the town, including their own businesses. It's a story of restoration, community, and hope. So here we go with Josh Scheutzow. All right, well, we're here today with Josh Scheutzow of the Kilbourne Project in Kilbourne, Ohio. Josh, thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having us. Having me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you're representing a larger group.
Yeah.
Tell us about you and the group of your friends who are working together on the Kilbourne Project.
So I am a small business owner, and I own a small furniture business here in Columbus, Ohio. And I have 3 neighbors, Garrett, Nate, and Aaron. And they own a couple small businesses as well. They do civil and site engineering and redevelopment and environmental consulting, stuff like that. So the 4 of us are all neighbors in this area outside of Columbus. It's in Delaware County, and we live right by this little town called Kilbourne.
So did you guys have any connections to Kilbourne, or what was it that drew you to this little area?
All of us moved up here kind of over the last couple years as an attempt to get our families into a slower pace of life. You know, we all kind of lived in Columbus. We worked in Columbus. And my family in particular, we have 4 little boys. We live down in the city, and then we moved up here on a couple acres just to kind of to get more of that country life, that rural homesteading dreams that we've had to to grow some of our own food and raise some animals and stuff like that. And then all of us, before we lived in Columbus, we all grew up in small towns in Ohio. And so our 3 partners, they were friends from college. And so they moved their families up here a couple of years ago and built homes on 20 acres across the street from us. So geographically, we all live across the street from each other. And Kilbourne is about 1.5 miles down the street from us, and so it's just a little town that we drive through every single day, or we ride our bikes down there, and it's just kind of right at the end of our street.
Cool. So tell us about your vision for the town, and how did that come to be?
So our vision for the town is simple. It used to be a thriving kind of settlers town back in the 1800s, and people settled there along the Alum Creek River, and then since then it just kind of never took off like some of the other bigger towns around here, and it's really become a place of disrepair, and a lot of the buildings are abandoned. A good chunk of the buildings are condemned by our local government to be either torn down or remodeled. And so our overall vision for the place is that we could help restore this little town to be a place that serves the local surrounding community. I think there's a population of 130 that are in the town limits. And then also be a place for people like us that live, within 5-10 minutes away, to bring our families to have a place that supports small businesses, whether it's restaurants or coffee shops or antique stores or anything like that. We don't have like the final mix of tenants of who would want to come and open a business there. But I'd say our vision is to just have a place where, where we could build community and continue to, build our own small businesses within this context. So that's kind of what we're going for.
So what was it that sparked the idea?
I think it started out as simple as it was our three partners were the original three, and then I was the fourth partner that came in later. So those three guys had the initial vision as they were we drive through this town every single day, and the only place that was open was a little carryout, and they sold pizzas out of the back kitchen, and the place was pretty run down, and I think as the guys kind of looked at it, and then there was an auction where some of the abandoned buildings were being auctioned off, and so my partners went to the auction, kind of did some research on the area, and kind of went into it of like, oh, this would be neat to have a building that could be a restaurant or a coffee shop or something that we could enjoy as our with our families, and then it just started spiraling. We got more and more of the buildings because the big challenge that we were faced from the beginning was that there's no infrastructure in town. There's no parking lots. There's no utilities. The utilities that are there, instead of sewage systems, there's septic systems, and some of the buildings are linked together on one septic tank and stuff like that. So it's impossible for local code to open a restaurant or open a business. And so a lot of the buildings were condemned, or people that have tried to redevelop these buildings over the last 30, 50 years have been unsuccessful because you wouldn't necessarily be able to viably, like financially, invest in one specific building unless you owned all of them. And so that quickly became a bigger project than they and we anticipated, because it was something that you couldn't just fix up one building. You need a parking lot that can service all of the buildings. You need stormwater and septic and new driveways and paving and stuff like that. And so our partners, the three guys, are civil engineers, site developers, and so they're like the only people that could figure something like this out.
Wow.
And so what started as a simple vision of like having a place to go hang out and have a beer, then turned into like, how do we do a historic preservation project for an entire town. And then over the last, I guess it would have been a year ago, I was brought in as the fourth partner to help with building community and finding tenants and kind of bringing our two companies or our three companies together to work on this.
I love that. So how long has this been in the works?
This is at least 2 years into the works, as far as we had to, before we could do anything, we had to acquire the buildings. We had to purchase them. Some of them were in auction. Some of them, to have a proper septic system or a parking lot, we needed parcels of land that didn't belong to us. And so we had to build relationships with neighbors or people that didn't live in the area any longer, and say, can we buy this back alley, or can we buy this like section of a field over here because we're going to need it for the infrastructure. And so the design and planning, all of that has been happening over the last couple of years. But our biggest hurdle was that there was no zoning in place for businesses to operate in this area. And so the zoning that was in place was from 100 years ago. And so there was an old, for example, there was an old auto garage that operated in the early 1900s. A picture of it from 1930. and they serviced farm equipment and old Ford, Model Ts and stuff like that. The garage is still there, and it's actually we purchased it, and we're going to be renovating this auto garage to be my new wood shop that my business will run out of. But it was zoned as a residential house, and so even though it was clearly a big, 4,000 square foot auto garage, the zoning was for a house, and so anybody who's tried to operate a business out of there was being shut down from zoning. And so what we had to do is we took the whole square, it's like 3.7 acre area, which is this like square block, and we had to rewrite the zoning for the entire area. And so we created our own planned commercial district, and we were able to be really specific about what types of businesses we would allow in this area. And part of that is because it's like right in the middle of this little neighborhood. And so there's people that live in these backyards of this old abandoned auto garage, And so people were very skeptical of us at first. But we had to, we had town hall meetings. We got together with people. We kind of explained what we were doing, tried to gain their trust, and then say, like these buildings are falling in on themselves. Somebody's going to do something with them. We felt like as neighbors, as people that live in this area, we had the best chance of being able to preserve the feel and the, kind of what this little town is about. Because if not, it's very, very, very likely that, a dollar store or some other developer would have bulldozed the whole place and put in a big gas station and a Wendy's or something, like that is what's happening around everywhere else you see, And so anyway, it kind of like, it was a long process, but I think in the fall, maybe October, November, we got the final zoning code approved. And then just in January, we got it, our final development plan was approved. So now we're in final design, like going in for permit and stuff like that. So we're kind of like in that final stage of figuring everything out.
That's so exciting. So give us a little bit of a picture of, you guys just kind of bought up the town. What does that include? Like what kind of buildings and former businesses does that include?
So, like I said, there was a little carry out. There was a pizza place.
Yep.
Right next to it, there was a big Greek Revival style. That was the architecture. So Greek Revival was one of the most popular styles of like farmhouse. So there's this giant 2-story house next door to the carryout that's called the Ohio House, and that was an inn and like a tavern back in the late 1800s. We have a town historian who knows, he's done a ton of research about the families and the genealogy and the first settlers and that type of thing. So we've been able to dig up a lot of black and white photos and stories of this town. And so the Ohio House was an inn, it was a tavern. We have even a newspaper clipping from some journalist who rode his horse through, from Mount Vernon to Delaware, and he stopped in Kilbourne for the night, and he stayed at the Ohio House and rented a room, Yeah. So there's the Ohio House. Next door to that is a little single family house that we're going to be converting into kind of like maybe like a town gazebo, with like a stage for bands to play on and have farmers markets and stuff like that. And it's like a little cross-shaped house. And on the front side of that might be like a perfect spot for like a popcorn or ice cream shop or something like that. Right next to that building is a giant, like 5,000 square foot commercial storefront that was previously, it was a general store. It was, I think it was always some sort of like provisions, like you could go get stuff for your horse and your farm, and they sold feed there and meat. And so this general store, and then most recently it was a restaurant, like maybe into 1970 or 1980, something around there. So there's a big restaurant there that we would love to see a new restaurant concept come in and have just a really good American menu. Nothing fancy, no like specific theme, but we're not restaurateurs, so like I don't know, but that'll be like kind of the anchor place that people can come up and go out to eat. And then behind that there is an old barn that served as a barn, and we have visions to turn that into an event space that could be rented out by the restaurant group or by a shop. There's a local kind of organic farmer, and they supply meat to a lot of the hottest restaurants in Columbus, and they're nearby. So they've talked about having a little storefront, a little butcher shop, fresh produce. And so we have this barn that we could use for farm dinners and community events and birthdays and stuff like that. And that little barn is located right on this town square. And I'll send you some of the renderings too, so you can kind of get a feel for the layout of the town. And so right next to that barn, we purchased a 26-foot tall wooden grain silo, and so we're going to be erecting that in town, just as like an homage to the history of the farmers and the agriculture community that came before us. Let's see. There's also there is a residential duplex that is right there. That's occupied currently, both sides. But we rewrote the zoning so that could stay as a duplex if somebody wanted to use it as a small shop or an office for a lawyer or a photographer or something. I don't know. We can do different things at different buildings. Across the street from that is another single family home that's currently occupied. And then right next to that is an old kind of social hall, like a 2-story hall that was used as like a fraternal order for the Knights of Pythias, which is kind of one of those, like, not the Freemasons, but that type of brotherhood group, the Knights of Pythias. So they had a meeting hall there, and that building is going to be remodeled to be the new engineering office for the three guys, my three partners. So right across from there, there's an old post office. There's another big house, and then catty corner from that is the big auto garage that will soon house my business. And so part of us trying to figure out how to pay for all this is working with a local small town bank. And so, we don't want to launch a bunch of new businesses. We want to run our businesses and be landlords and have other like-minded businesses come to town and be a part of this town. But we're also bringing our businesses to town. So we're bringing 40 new jobs to this town. My business will be operating out of the auto garage, and their business will be operating out of this Knights of Pythias building. And so we'll have kind of be owner occupied in this town. So like we'll be bringing both of our businesses to town and kind of be the anchor tenants as we get going, because we are envisioning this to be a few year process for it really to get fixed up and people to get interested in this. So
I love it. So are you open to ideas then for what some of the other buildings could be if somebody comes to you with an idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we've had we're already generating a lot of buzz. We were approached by several people interested in doing a TV show about this process, and so yeah, lots of people have contacted us, but we don't have any plans or commitments yet because we haven't gotten through to that final breaking ground stage on what we can do for the site work. So over this, before things got crazy with, COVID-19, we were on that stage towards this spring, this summer. We were going to be doing design and finding tenants and that type of thing. So now it's just delayed. I don't know if what the new schedule looks like, but hopefully we'll still be getting something done this year.
Well, it's going to be so fun to follow along. I can't wait to see it all come together.
Yeah.
So you actually live in the fastest growing county in the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, you're fighting against development and urban sprawl a little bit. Has that been more of a challenge or a catalyst for what you're doing?
I'd say it's been a catalyst because it's helped us gain trust with the farmers and the people that live there currently. It's also, it helps that we grew up in small towns. And so we have a lot of like nostalgic memories of, riding our bikes down to get ice cream in our little town square. And like, at least for me personally, I grew up in a little town outside of Cleveland, Ohio called Olmsted Falls. And we had the same thing. It was kind of town area. It was right on the train tracks, so it's called Grand Pacific Junction. And they had a couple little restaurants and little shops, and there was one tiny little shack you went in, and they had like 50 different types of popcorn. And I was like, now as an adult, I'm like, how is this guy like paying the rent, like just selling popcorn? And but I think there's these little tiny micro areas that can work if you have a community of businesses and people that believe in what you're doing. And obviously we're in a really difficult time, to have a small business and to weather this storm of like things being shut down. But I truly believe, I've like literally gambling on it, that people will come around these small businesses and so it doesn't have to be big brand, big development, big, like 5 minutes from here is a huge outlet mall, and so like just imagine like a big outlet malls with the the North Face and JC Penney's and like Nordstrom Rack and like all that type of stuff is like right down the road. And so yeah, we're kind of like that we're like the antithesis of like development, even though we are developers, and so our hope is that we'd have this like really like rural, quaint, walkable commercial district that can still support new ideas and new entrepreneurism and like fresh outside of the box thinking of like how businesses expand, but do it in a way that is respectful to the community, to what's come before us. And we have no plans on bulldozing anything. And so we're rebuilding these old structures from the inside out. And like, I'm not kidding, you can see through the walls of a lot of these buildings. And so the construction project is monumental. But we have a great team. We've got a great design team. And one of our key players in that is we have a landscape architect who specializes in historic restoration renovation projects. And so this guy is named Jason from Implement Studios. He's worked on century old churches and town squares and cemeteries and stuff like that. And so he was able to walk through this town and get a feel for like what did it used to look like 150 years ago, And so we aren't changing much, and we were even able to write into our zoning code things like gravel parking lots and like stuff like that not able to be used anywhere in our county, but because of the history of this place, we argued that, giant black asphalt parking lots aren't going to fit in out here, And so we were able to like kind of push back a little bit on some of that development with the understanding that we're doing our best to kind of retain the feel of this place and really respect the history of what this town used to be, and try and just like breathe some life into it, in a way that's sustainable. Because obviously businesses need to make money. This is a huge financial undertaking. We're not big developers. Like, we're literally leveraging our life savings to try and make this happen. Because we believe in community. We believe in small town, neighbors taking care of each other. And that's what we've experienced even more so in the current times of people taking care of each other. So I think that is like a big driving force for us as a family and us as a team, to kind of push back a little bit on what's happening all around us, so.
I love that. And you're also kind of strategically placed next to us. Is it a state park?
Yeah. There's a huge, one of the biggest Ohio state parks is called Alum Creek State Park. And so we're bordered on one side by the state park. And so during the weekends, even now when, the town is abandoned, during the weekends, there are just hundreds of people that come through, that whether they're hikers or horseback riders or bicyclists and stuff like that. And so we're hoping for this to be a place for people to recreate on the weekends and go for a hike and come up for lunch and like that type of stuff. So it's definitely a huge part of our location, is having this state park where we get a lot of, it's beautiful up here.
Yeah, your pictures on Instagram look amazing. I can't wait to come visit in person. Talk about the responsibility of preservation and what that means to you.
There's definitely it's hard for the locals to really remember what, commercial business looked like in Kilbourne, because there weren't a ton of people that are still alive that remember it. There's a handful of older folks who remember being kids and, visiting these shops, or their grandparents picking up their weekly supplies and grain for their horses and stuff like that. And so, and a lot of those people don't live in the area anymore. So now that we started publicizing it on Facebook and Instagram, we've had people reach out to us and say, "Oh, my grandfather used to live in that greenhouse," or whatever, which is a ton of fun. So preservation for us, I think, really lends itself towards like, how do we preserve the community feel for our neighbors, the people that are surrounding it, because they've literally been living to these quiet, empty, abandoned buildings for decades, and so we're obviously bringing traffic and noise and business and and commerce to this town, and so even if it's a quiet flower shop, there's still going to be, hopefully there'd be people coming to buy flowers and visit and stuff like that. And so some of those concerns that people have had about increase in traffic and noise and that type of thing, it's happening everywhere. And so we're trying our best to like just pay attention to what people's concerns are, and in our design be thoughtful with landscaping, with the flow of what traffic could be. And it's not a big, we're not talking a big area, so it's not like there's hundreds and hundreds of cars that could even park there. I think there's like 63 parking spots or something like that. And so, yeah, I think preservation for us would be finding the right entrepreneurs and business people that have a similar vein of, small town, hardworking Americans to be able to really carve a life out for themselves in this area, because we've done it ourselves. We each own small businesses, and we're operating with that hope and that expectation that small businesses can still thrive. And so we want to see that expanded, and so that we can create an environment that somebody could succeed if they wanted to sell popcorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's probably not the first businesses going in, but like, to have something that's like handmade and authentic and crafted, whether that's like a really good coffee shop or a place that, sells really good barbecue or something like that. Like it's a place that will more likely than not be a destination that serves people. So I could see it being, food and beverage and craft beer or a winery or something like that. And then with all the development happening, we definitely have space for some little pocket offices, whether it's for a realtor or an insurance agent or, like I said, like a flower shop or something. Like there's a bunch of little spaces like that we can fill in with people that have that dream and are crazy enough to like try and work for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. As you've gone through these buildings, what have been some of your favorite finds?
Oh wow. Um, you know, we've definitely we've been faced with a lot of like stuff that's just been like open, roofs that are torn off and like literally just been raining in the side of the buildings for years and years and years. I think one of our best finds was we found a second floor room at the auto garage that had been kind of sealed up. Like it was hard to get up to. There was a little trap door with a ladder. The ladder was kind of broken. And that was the only way to get up there. And so we like climbed up into this area and you could just tell nobody had been up there for 40 years, and there's like old fur coats hanging on the wall. And it was the storage room for the auto shop. And so we found just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paper receipts and bookkeeping stuff, just boxes of these pink receipts that were all dated from 1937. And so whatever happened that year, they threw all their stuff up there, and then it was like they just never went up there again. And so we just found a bunch of cool stuff where, like you get a receipt for someone like having their engine rebuilt and it was like $17, or like 3 gallons of gas was like 12 cents and like stuff like that. And so, that was really cool. And then downstairs in the auto garage, the last year it operated was 1970 something, 1972. And so we found, underneath this pile of debris, I found the guy's desk, and inside the drawers of the desk were just a bunch of stuff from running a business in 1974, and so he had, manifolds and instruction books and like all sorts of stuff. And inside the desk, there was a door that opened, and there was a clip on the inside of the door, and there was an old fashioned like billy club clipped to the inside of this door. That was like his security weapon, I guess. Just this like wooden club that like if you're, any riffraff came in, he'd get this club out, I guess. But so there's some stuff like that. And then, yeah, like some of the other buildings, a lot of them had been like people had tried to restore them over the last 40 years or gotten their hands on them somehow and gutted it. You know what I mean? And like the hopes to like, restore it or fix up this house or put in a new business. But because there's no infrastructure, because there's no parking, there wasn't the zoning, like it seemed like a lot of those attempts just petered out. And it ended up with mostly one guy who had bought all of these buildings. And so he was the guy who passed away, and then the properties were auctioned off and we got most of them.
Okay.
And then maybe 3 or 4 out of the 11 from that auction. So
Wow. That's great.
yeah.
Well, how do we follow along with everything that's coming up for you?
We definitely have like putting things on hold for the last month as we are, we haven't really been leaving our properties that much. I don't know what it's like out there, but Ohio is, most of the country is under a stay-at-home order. But, on our Instagram, which is the Kilbourne Project, and on Facebook, which is the Kilbourne Project, that's where we're going to be documenting all of the work and the remodels and what we find out along the way. So we'll be telling that story there. There's also hopes that we'd be launching a YouTube channel to just post videos of the process and stuff like that. So that's probably the Instagram, Facebook right now is the best way to stay up to date with what's happening with the project. And we don't have a website put up yet, but social media is probably the best way.
Okay, perfect. And you're the guy behind the socials, right?
Yeah. That's kind of my job is social media and community engagement, storytelling, stuff like that. So
yeah, you do a great job. So we look forward to following along.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that we haven't touched on yet that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's one of those things that like, hopefully as people are passing through that aren't from the area, it would be great to just stop in and see it even now, because like you can drive through and like visit the state park and Kilbourne Market is currently open. And so you can stop in and get lunch and pick up snacks and stuff like that and get a feel for what the town's like. And then hopefully over the next couple of years, come back and visit, and the street will be shut down because we'll have a farmer's market there and a band playing on the gazebo stage. And like I think that's just like that's what the fun part is for me, is like knowing like where it came from, where it is now, and what it could be. So on our Instagram page we've got some really good renderings of like the vision and what we could see this being, and so they're a lot of fun to kind of check out and just be for me especially and for our partners to look at those and be reminded of like, okay, like if we can get to the other side and survive all of this craziness, that's the reward is being able to build this area, build this sense of community that surrounds us already, and provide a place for others to experience that too. So.
Well, I love it. I can't wait to come visit myself, and we can't wait to follow along. So Josh, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I love how this group is committed to building community and even bringing their own small businesses to the town of Kilbourne. Be sure to go check out their social media pages where you can find pictures of the properties and renderings of the transformation we will see take place here. I know so many of you are trying to pivot into the online space because #Corona, and several of you have asked about joining our Cultivate coaching group for small business owners and small town leaders. So we're opening it back up for a limited time. This group is a great resource as you navigate the changes we're all facing, and our weekly discussions are focused on getting you through these challenging times, and we want you there. Come join us at ruralrevival.co/cultivate. Huge thanks to Josh for being on the podcast, and thanks to you for tuning in and staying with us as we record these podcasts remotely during quarantine. We look forward to being back out on the road soon, but until then, stay healthy and safe, and have a great day, everybody.